we normally meet in the Maud Street Mill. Because of COVID, we haven't been able to do that. So, but we've been meeting over Zoom for probably a year or so now. And that hasn't been bad because we get people like Graeme to come along and talk to us. So it's been quite valuable in that sense. So today's meeting is being hosted on the lands of the Yorta Yorta people. And I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. Also pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. We should note that these lands have never been ceded. And I should also acknowledge any other Aboriginal elders who may be with us. Today's guest is Graeme Wiggins, who I'll talk about soon. And Graeme's working on a project to convert an aging Range Rover to having a drivetrain with a Tesla. Graeme is an innovation and STEAM thought leader who creates active learning communities aligned with technology and enterprise skills and to grow entrepreneurial mindsets. He is a globally recognised designer of dynamic, technology-rich STEAM learning spaces. Graeme's professional focus is on co-designing exciting STEAM learning projects in partnership with industry, schools and community. You'll notice I've used the term STEAM a couple of times, which is STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And I'm hoping Graeme will say something about why art's included in that. Welcome, Graeme. I hope you'll tell us something about yourself. Tell us about your program to convert your old Range Rover, not your old Range Rover, but an aging Range Rover into a modern Tesla-powered car. Importantly, that your Bendigo project involves only girls, and that makes it unique in the world. So, Graeme, it's over to you to give us a few thoughts.
Thank you very much, Rob, and hello, Wisteria Group. I'm not sure if we have a botanical name for you as a collective noun, but maybe that's a project to think of one. I'd like to thank you very much for your interest in our project, and maybe I'll start with Rob's prompt, which is why we include the A in STEAM. Now, if you talk to the state government, they insist it's STEM, but we mean the A in the most liberal term. And as a former teacher of design technology, what I always used to tell my students to explain the difference between STEM and STEAM, with STEM, you have the conditions of innovation. With STEAM, you have the ability to scale and impact through understanding markets, psychology, the fact that people need and like, aesthetics to play a part in the products that they use. And so it's a wider condition of innovation than simply the STEM would insist. Hope that's everyone's clear, and you can always pop a question in the chat if you need some more clarification. Now, we've just had the news here that we're going into lockdown as of 1 p.m. So our day's being cut short, which is disappointing because I think we've lost about 50% of our workshop sessions due to our friend COVID-19, but we need to keep ourselves and our communities safe. So I guess that's just the price we have to pay, and we'll look forward to a time when we're able to operate these types of projects without interruption. Now, if you can hear a lot of screaming in the background, it's not because there's an occupational health and safety issue with the students. It's because we're at the back of this Discovery Science and Technology Centre, and it's full of kids at the moment for the next hour or so anyway, until they close. And Discovery, as part of our partnership, have given us their workshop out the back. And I'm going to take you on a little tour around the workshop in a second. But first of all, I just want to give you some background on why we're doing this project and why it's important. So this project is the confluence of two really important issues. One was young people and jobs, and the fact that in Bendigo, where manufacturing is the largest contributor to our regional GDP, young people are terribly underrepresented in engineering, advanced manufacturing, technology, and not trades, but young women are very underrepresented in trades as well. Now, the other issue that we have is underrepresentation of women in STEM subjects. If you take allied health, in tertiary courses, we're only talking about less than 15% of enrolments are women. If you look at trades, less than 10% nationally are young women who've decided to take a trades pathway. There's a lot of reasons for that, and we don't have time to go into it today. If you want my 30-second thesis, it's basically because of some fairly outmoded definitions of who does what jobs and who can do what, and recognizing that young women have capabilities that are equal or if not superior to young men because they're less risk averse and they have greater attention to detail in general terms. And the other issue is probably a lack of mentoring. Bendigo has a lot of, as does Shepparton, low SES communities where there just aren't those really, you know, the family is where we rely on mostly for our information about what we might like to do in our career. And when you have multi-generational unemployment, there just isn't really a clear way for young women and young people to connect with the jobs that we have available here. The other reason why we did this is because we care deeply about sustainability. We care about getting people into electric cars because that's our future. And I know there's a lot of silly debate going on. It's all about range anxiety and the, you know, the energy that goes into making batteries and what to do with batteries later. But I like to say two things that talk about why the electric car revolution will take a little bit of time and effort on all of our behalves. And the first is that if you go back to 1920 in America, most vehicles at that time were electric. The second largest source of propulsion was steam, and internal combustion engines were an oddity. If you wanted fuel for your petrol car, in those times you had to go to a pharmacy and buy your fuel in pint bottles. Now, let's fast forward 200 years into the future when everybody owns an electric car and internal combustion engines are seen only in museums. Are people going to be saying things like, I've heard about this internal combustion technology, why can't I charge it in my garage? Why can't I put fuel into it in my garage? You know, if I leave fuel in my internal combustion engine in my garage, will it explode? So think about some of the issues that people talk about now and how ridiculous they'd seem if you flip those tables completely. Anyway, enough about the issues. So part of our project is about educating the community, but you're an educated community. What we're doing is we're creating an electric vehicle out of a 1982 Range Rover 3-door. I'll get into why we chose that car in a little bit. We're doing this because we care about the future of transport, but also because it's an amazing project to educate young women on the opportunities available to them. So we've got all the practical hands-on work of disassembly, refurbishment, restoration. We're working on those sorts of things now. And there's also all the wonderful insights that we're going to gain from our connections with industry. And I'll talk about industry and our connections to it in a little while. But effectively, we also have tours. We have tours to TAFEs, universities. We've been to the Kangan Centre of Automotive Excellence. We've been to the sites of our industry partners, and I have a growing list of people who want me to take the students to their business and their industry, both locally and in Melbourne. And industry's offering things like internships for these young women, because every industry I speak to is desperate to get young people with the right attitudes and the right skills into their workplaces. And that's what we're aiming to do. Just channel young women into these in-demand sectors in Bendigo and that we know are going to grow in Australia. Now, we're not only doing that. We're also, when this car is finished in 18 months or so time, we're going to make it available to the community to hire. Any of you could make a booking and come and use our car that we're working on right now and experience electric car ownership and find out a little bit about our story and enjoy tourism, take it off-road if you want to. The whole idea with making an electric four-wheel drive is it's not something you can currently buy or do in Australia unless you make it yourself, although the market will deliver those alternatives in time. And I think, you know, importantly, we want to say as a community, if we can do this, surely you should be able to as well. And I know there is interest. So I know there's interest in Shepparton and in doing a similar project, and that's come through the council there. And I know there's an appointing, and Rob's involved, and he knows more about it. Well, it was going to be next month. We'll see. It might be online at this rate. See how we're going. And but the idea is, we wanted to do this project in such a way that yes, we could do it first, but we could also package it and make it possible for anybody to follow our lead and do the same thing. And that brings us to why we're working with Range Rover. So behind me, and you'll have to excuse me, I'm on a laptop, which isn't ideal, but you can see a Range Rover chassis there. Now, about 4 months ago, oh, excuse me 1 second. I just want to, the girls are dying to get back to work. So I think I've given them enough of a break to talk to you. So there'll be a bit of noise, but I'll just be 1 second. You guys, you can jump back in now if you want to. I can manage with the noise. Yeah, happy to do that. Awesome. No, I want some challenge there as well. All right. You might hear some drilling in the background. So in April, this was a complete Range Rover 3-door. It was donated to us basically for the price of parts. So I made a deal with the collector that we got it from. We paid a very small amount of money and we can get any part we need so that we are not stuck. I guess the other great thing about Land Rovers and Range Rovers is that you can still buy all the parts pretty much brand new, anything you need. So we've already had one order in from the UK. Is that drilling not too much of an annoyance in the background? Because I can move to a quieter spot. So what we've done and what the girls have done, they had Bendigo Southeast, they let us use their workshop. And we had that for a term, and they also timetabled our program so that the students would come in during class time. And that worked so well. We had so many students sign up that we had to alternate them. A couple of the students actually did all of their classwork at home so they could attend double sessions and also during their class time to keep on top of it. And we completely disassembled the Range Rover in less than 20 hours. So basically 3 days of somebody's, like, you know, think of what you could do with three days worth of skilled work, probably a lot, but we completely disassembled it. And the great thing about a Range Rover is it's basically a big Meccano set. They used to import them in flat packs to get around the luxury car tax, assemble them locally in the late 70s and early 80s. And so it's just a great big Meccano kit that we've disassembled. And basically the car is essentially on that shelf behind me. So you can see up on the top, there's the roof. Then we've got windows on that shelf. There's some panels over there. All of the interior and a lot of the mechanicals in those plastic tubs. We've got seats and interior on that shelf there, and you can see one of the side frames. And then over here, you can see basically the front end of the car, the wings, the bonnet, and a few other panels over there. And then behind me, we've got one of the pieces of framework over there that we're working on. You can see that we've cut out the rusted sill. So it's an English car. Of course, it's going to be rusty, but it wasn't too bad. So we've gotten away with the rust just by effectively drilling out the spot welds, and we're welding in new panels. And the students are all, they're doing all of this work themselves. So I show them what to do, they do it. And I tell you what, you show them once, it's brilliant. Another interesting thing about the students' involvement is that the school has informed me every student involved in the project, their grades have gone up in circumstances when everybody else's grades are going down and very difficult to maintain. And I guess part of the reason for that is the national interest in this project has been phenomenal, and they have an enormous pride in their association. Now, it's fair to say COVID has killed us because we have to, you know, we've lost half of our workshop sessions. It's hard to maintain continuity with the project, but they're still coming. I've just got 2 students in here today, and they're probably the most dedicated. You know, one of the students wants to become a diesel mechanic and just loves it, loves this work, hates school, but loves this because she really feels that she can do it and she's got some fantastic capability. All right. Before we go around and see what the students are doing, I'm just going to untether myself from my power cable and grab my hotspot, and we'll go for a little bit of a walk. So here's the Range Rover chassis. So another reason why we went with a Range Rover is because, you know, it's not a monocoque. We can pull the body off the chassis and we can work on it. So that's where about 750 kilograms of motor and gearbox used to live. And we're replacing that with probably 800.
If you're frozen, Graeme.
Sorry about that. Connection's a little unstable. I'm back. So we're replacing that with probably about 800 kilograms worth of Tesla motor and batteries. And the Tesla motor will go nice and low as we can make it in the chassis. And that will be re-engineered with a reduction gear so that we don't strip out the prop shafts, which is what would happen if we just put the Tesla motor straight in without any re-engineering. We're putting in 16 Tesla battery packs, which I think will give us 60 kilowatts at the very least. I'm a bit foggy because that all sits with our industry partner. So there'll be 2 packs. One will sit on top of the axle, and it'll effectively be in a box that is about the same size as the V8 engine that used to be in this car. And then down here, where the fuel tank was, and underneath the rear floor, we'll put the other 6 batteries. And that'll mean that we have to lift the floor up about 100 millimeters. We'll put in a CAN bus system for the 12 volt, which will greatly simplify the electrics. Jaunt Motors will design that for us. So it'll all be block codable. There'll be very simple single circuits with multiple resistors attached to them. And we have to even re-engineer the gauges because instead of fuel, we need it to save volts, and we need to change. So it's got a mechanical accelerator. We need to replace that one with a digital accelerator so that we can then have a digital speedometer. But the idea is not for the car to look significantly any different in the way that it drove, other than the fact it won't have a clutch. It possibly won't even have a brake pedal, depending on how we engineer it. More than likely it will, because there is an option within the Tesla engineering that you can do away with your brake pedal altogether, just a single pedal option. But I think it's probably better just to go with 2 pedals, thinking about it. Because when people hire it, we don't want them to have to be overwhelmed by complexity, effectively. All right, so for this chassis, our next step is to completely disassemble suspension, braking, and strip that absolutely down to the bare ladder frame. That'll go off to Jaunt Motors. Now, Jaunt are Australia's largest electrical conversion workshop. They convert 4-wheel drives into electric vehicles for adventure. There's actually a local connection with Jaunt. Dave Budge, the founder, he's the son of Trevor Budge, who some of you might recognise from City of Greater Bendigo Economic Development. He worked for them for a long time. So Dave and Martine, who used to work in the creative industries doing advertising campaigns, decided to do a project together, and this is what they did. Their vision is to create a national network of electric rental vehicles, and they might be available through vineyards as part of an accommodation package, or like ours, just available for the community. What they have discovered, though, is a lot of their business evolves around people with very deep pockets doing electric conversions for themselves. Now, to give you an example of cost, if you take away the restoration costs, they vary depending on the condition of the vehicle. An electric conversion starts at $50,000 and goes up to about $240,000. Now, we're somewhere in the middle. Tesla's the most expensive way of doing it, but it's also the best result because Tesla have obviously done a lot of work with R&D and engineering, and they've produced a very compelling product that lends itself to conversion. I've even heard about a chap who took a Tesla Model S, took all of the components out, put it into an Audi, but the Tesla charging network still thinks it's a Tesla, so he can still charge it. But the good news is, and I don't know if you've heard this, but Tesla are making their supercharging network available to everybody in Australia by the end of the year. Now, when you couple that with the fact that Ampol are doing DC fast charging, that there's government money, $550 million going into fast charging throughout the nation. It's not going to be too long before we've actually got a national highway of chargers that we can get around the country on. And of course, you know, with our partnership with Discovery, there's a roof full of solar. There's a Tesla Powerwall somewhere else in the building. And JetCharge have donated us a 22 kilowatt AC fast charger. That is what we're going to charge the car with. And we will put 3 inverters into this car so it can charge at 22 kilowatts, because most cars with AC can only charge at 6.7 kilowatts because the factories assume you're just plugging into a plug at home, whereas we can do 3-phase charging if we put the 3 inverters in. So that's the plan. Jaunt Motors are doing all of the electrical design. They're going to come up and they're going to work with the students on the safe bits to install the system. We're going to work with a local auto electrician on the 12-volt system to Jaunt's design. And we're working with lots of different people on the restoration side. So I'm just going to pause there and ask if anybody's got any questions. And I'm going to take you around to meet some of the students working today. Has anybody got anything they'd like to ask me? I'll go out to where it's slightly quieter. Any questions from anyone?
Yeah.
That window if you want.
Engineering certification, things like that, Graeme, is that a bit of a headache with you, or you're not really tackling the chassis, are you?
We are modifying the chassis. We're putting brackets on it, which, you know, are minor changes to the original specification. There are 4 certifiers for electric vehicles in Victoria, and we'll be relying on Jaunt to do the scheduling when they think we're ready to get that certified. So it's a question of booking in advance, basically, and being pretty confident that we meet standards, because we have to re-engineer the power steering, we have to re-engineer the braking, we're putting airbag suspension on it. There's a lot of stuff that we have to do to make it safe and convenient, because we're taking basically 60s technology and we're turning it into something that's very contemporary. If you know the chap that does 4 times Overland, he's a real Range Rover enthusiast. He will tell you without question that the Range Rover Classic is the most capable 4-wheel drive ever produced, and it's effectively a go-anywhere car because it just doesn't have the complexity that modern cars do with multiple failure points. So, you know, we're working with a very solidly engineered platform to begin with.
Alfred's got his hand up.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, when I joined this meeting, I had in mind a kind of cheapish kind of process that our manshed could take on, but you're talking about $100,000-$200,000, so it's a bit. But if you look at the internet for conversion of motorbikes to electric motorbikes, people do that for $100 to $300 with old motors from dishwashers or whatever, and so it is possible to do those things on the cheap, but not as fancy as yours, of course.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Because, okay, partly because we have the money to be able to do it, and we've been very generously sponsored by Kirkland Lake Gold's Community Enterprise Program, partly because we have the money to do it, but partly because the university's La Trobe's putting its name to it and we are making it available to the public. We want it to be the best, safest, most state-of-the-art job that we can possibly do. So we're working with the best people in the industry to make that happen. And we are doing it at the, you know, like if all of our objective was to have electric hire, we could just buy a couple of Tesla Model 3s and rent them out to people. But there wouldn't be any learning in that. Yeah. There wouldn't be the opportunity to partner with industry doing that. Yeah. And it's actually ironic that the demand for secondhand Tesla parts is such that the cost of buying the re-engineered motor and the battery is actually more than us buying a Tesla Model 3. But that's just, you know, market forces and the relative weakness of the Australian currency at play in that respect. But it's also quite terrible to what we're doing is we're upcycling and restoring a vehicle that otherwise be rusting in a paddock. And, you know, that's important. But we couldn't do all of that wonderful skills building with our students if we didn't have that process. And Alfred, you still got your hand up. Did you have another question?
No, the hand should have gone by now, but but one comment that Range Rover, of course, hasn't got the reliability that everybody, generally speaking, has got a bad reputation of breaking down in electronics. So I hope you fix that in your.
Well, that's right. Well, we've taken out all the bits that were a problem, and so
Yeah.
they're not going to cause us issues anymore.
Yeah, good.
We're just left with the very rugged, very capable chassis and a completely new modern drivetrain and electrics. So everything that made that car terrible is simply no longer in the equation.
Yeah.
What's your timeline now for the project, Graeme?
Well, we keep bleeding time because of COVID. I would say we're only running a month or two behind where we thought we'd be. It's hard to know how long some of these things are going to take, and importing and exporting is a little bit unpredictable at the moment as well. So we're saying 18 months at minimum from here. So basically a 2-year project, and that's blown out from what we thought was going to be 18 months from the beginning. So we're running about 4 or 5 months behind at the moment, overall, and factoring in that uncertainty and unpredictability. And yeah, we're homeless as of February because Discovery needs their workshop back, but the community will reach out and support us. They always do with everything we've asked them to do.
So what's the community response been like?
Oh, look, it's phenomenal. Everybody who works in the economic development space and the community space thinks it's wonderful, because we've been talking in Bendigo for a long time about what the problems are, but this is actually, one of the most visible ways that we're doing something about it and building that dialogue around sustainability and getting young women into these priority employment areas. So yeah, the community is behind us, very interested, very engaged and very supportive. I actually did have a pile of people coming in today who've all just cancelled because they're in lockdown as of 1 o'clock. And that included Kohler Solar. They're helping us with the installation of our donated charger that Jet Charge have given us. And we're also connecting that charger into the ChargeFox network so that it's also accessible to the community if they want to charge here. Now, you'll only be able to charge at 6.7, but it's still a public charger, and there aren't many in Bendigo at the moment. I'm told there's a couple in Shepparton, but I don't know much about them. But don't worry, I'll be driving the car over to check it out when it's done. And well, maybe the students will. I've told them all they can get their learner's test, for their license or for their driver's license in the car if they want to.
They wouldn't be licensed yet, though, would they?
No, I don't have any licensed students. The eldest one is probably 16 at the moment. All right.
So what's been the reaction of the girls to the whole program?
Oh, they love it. They absolutely love it. So I've told you how their grades went up, how they do their classwork at home, so they could, when it was at the school, they could work on it in the school. But the really keen ones, and you're about to meet Charlotte and Della, they are here absolutely every week, working, the whole day. And
okay.
yeah, so just really, getting amazingly skilled up. We should go in and meet the students. Would you like to? Okay, guys, can we just take a little drill break for a second? I'm just going to introduce you to the, it's the Acacia group, isn't it? Did I get that right? No.
Beneath the Wisteria.
Wisteria. I got my botanicals mixed up.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
This is the Wisteria group. They're mostly around in Shepparton, and they get together to talk about all sorts of issues of interest to the community. So on your, I think that's your right is Del, because it's different to me. So give everyone a wave, Del. And that's Charlotte. Now, these guys are from different schools. Charlotte's from Crusoe, Del's from Bendigo Southeast. And anyway, I've just talked to these guys all about the electric car project, and they might want to hear a little bit from you about why you're doing it and what you like about it. So Charlotte, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so just why.
Yeah, why? Do you want what you like about it?
I picked it up just because it was a nice opportunity, and I think we must go sustainable to save the planet.
And Jill, why do you do this project?
Because I'm interested in it.
Yep. So tell the guys a little bit about some of the skills you've learned over the past couple of months.
I learned how to use an angle grinder properly. I don't know.
Del's feeling a little bit shy today. But Charlotte, do you want to talk about some of the skills that you've learned since you started taking on the project?
I've learned how to drill out spot wells.
Yeah, so that's what they're doing over here. We're just pulling the scuttle out of the firewall, and we've actually pulled the firewall apart because a lot of it's rusty. There's new parts for the firewall over there on the bench there that we've got. Yeah, like general
Angle
tools.
grinding.
Yeah. And Del's done work in treating rust and all that sort of thing. So, but we've got all of the different, skills and capabilities that go in automotive trades yet to come. So Del, you come almost every week. Why is that?
Because I want to learn more about how cars work and that.
Yep. And what is it that you want to do in particular with your career?
I want to become a diesel mechanic.
Yeah. So everything you're doing here is going to be really useful for that. And we've actually, through our industry connections, we've got Del an internship with PACCAR that we will negotiate at some point over the school holidays. They are truck importers and manufacturers here in Australia. They bring in DAF and Kenworth and a whole bunch of other things. And that's the great thing about the project is that so many people are interested in supporting the students and helping them to find their pathway into these industries. So so that's just two of the crew. There are 26 of them. One of the challenges now that we've moved to the museum is that the museum's open on Saturdays and girls do a lot of sport. So and COVID's really knocked us around. So we're basically we'll probably have to move it to a couple of other days just to facilitate for everyone. But we manage everything with a Trello board and we have a lot of project management that sits behind this as well.
So where'd you get the second-hand parts for the Tesla from, Graeme?
So the batteries come from America, and the idea is that you need to get a set of batteries from the same car. That's considered most ideal because they're being used in a consistent way. And so you get better longevity out of batteries that come from a single car. The motor, and so they come out of wrecked Teslas, basically because we all know that Teslas are a little bit unhinged when it comes to performance. A lot of the drivers just can't handle them. And provided they don't explode and burn up as some of them do, there's a huge aftermarket for Tesla parts. So the batteries will come from wrecked Teslas. The motors similarly will come from wrecked Teslas, but they have been re-engineered in England, and where they re-engineer them specifically for projects. And there's a whole lot of companies, and I can get information to Rob. They actually make kits, so for specific cars. I know that they do one for an MX-3 from a company in the UK. And you come and grab the tools. That's okay. I'll move out of your way. They do. There's an Audi A3. There's an MX-3. I know you can get Beetle kits, Porsche 911 kits. Jaunt are working on a kit for Land Rover so that people can do their own conversions, or Land Rover / Range Rover, as well as all the instructions. So I think we're seeing the beginning of a really exciting industry at the moment, and it's quite amazing that Jaunt, 3 years ago they were just an idea, and now they're employing a whole lot of people who've been affected by the downturn in the manufacturing industry in Australia. And they've created a new manufacturing industry, and I think it's fantastic that all of that expertise is actually going to use, because there's only one place in Australia where motor vehicles are designed, engineered and constructed. Does anyone know where that is?
No.
It's here in Bendigo.
Really?
They do the Hawkeye, yeah. It's the only designed and manufactured vehicle left being made in Australia. Lots of people doing conversions, buses, delivery trucks, particularly in Queensland and New South Wales, a couple of organisations down in Melbourne. But effectively, Victoria has the biggest four-wheel drive conversion facility down at Jaunt Motors in Williamstown. And if you go to the Jaunt Motors website, they've got lots of fantastic videos on all the technicalities that I've only touched on, but they talk about them in detail on the videos on their website. So just plug Jaunt Motors into Google. They even feature a little video about us when we launched the project as part of the NGV Melbourne Design Week. But they have a lot of great information, and their social media is excellent and very entertaining because they come from, you know, media production. And they're just wonderful partners to work with because they are, they have so much patience for what we're doing. They look after us. They're very generous with their time. Obviously, we have to pay them, you know, a little bit of something for their expertise, and they're helping us to connect with all the people they're working with. And so it means that it's so easy to do compared to if you were trying to navigate your way through this yourself. And I think that's phenomenal. We've also, I don't know if you know this, but Safescape is a company that produces mining safety equipment like barriers to stop trucks driving off the sides of mines and escape tunnels for mining. They've also started producing electric vehicles for the mining industry. They convert a Brazilian vehicle called a Botana, and they're doing the heavy engineering to convert that into a vehicle that can be used in the mines. And the great thing about mines is they're loaded with DC power, so they don't have any concerns about range or charging because that's available everywhere. And apparently, because the Botana is galvanized and it's all, you know, sealed against moisture really, really well, they can, anticipate a life cycle for that car of about 10 years. Whereas if you buy a Land Cruiser, which is the vehicle of choice, or a Hilux, you can expect about 12 months of use out of that before it's so badly corroded it has to be scrapped.
Well, we had a question from Lou.
Yeah, well, yes. Have you tried a Volkswagen Beetle?
Yeah, look, you can get kits to do those. In fact, Ewan McGregor converted his Volkswagen Beetle to electric, and there's videos on YouTube you can see about that. Yeah, there are kits you can do, and Volkswagen Beetles are great because they have very even weight distribution and they're pretty low to the ground to begin with, and they're very easy and good to convert. Now, it's funny you should mention the Beetle because 10 years ago, when I went to do my first electric car conversion, because I used to work in a school in Melbourne, and we used to enter the RACV Energy Breakthrough, and we'd engineer hybrid electric trikes that the students would do endurance racing in. And we thought, well, we can do it on this scale. Why don't we just build a big one? And Ceres in Brunswick was doing work then, and so we were able to lean on them a little bit with expertise. But my gosh, compared to what they're doing 10 years ago to what we can do now, and the knowledge that exists, it's a different world. I actually did buy a Volkswagen Beetle and got it for $800, if you can believe that, still running. And to the best of my knowledge, it's still sitting somewhere on the grounds of Trinity Grammar in Melbourne because it never got converted. I left, and and then when I came to Bendigo and I realized I had the tech school, lots of community support, the first thing I did was say to the community, this is what I want to do. And it's actually, I was at a Bendigo manufacturing group meeting when Trevor Budge said, oh, you need to meet my son Dave. And that's where all of this started, really. Just by, and look, it's been a 2-year journey for me, to actually closer to 3 years, from the moment I pushed out that thought bubble of this is what we're going to do, with no money, no students, no timeline, no car, to the point where we could begin with all of those ingredients that we needed and with the full support of community and industry. Now, my understanding is that in Shepparton, there's so much interest from schools, industry and council that you have done what took me 2 years in about 3 months. And I'm touring the group in Shepparton with this project, and I've offered to do that because if we can scale this project, if we could get 10, 20 of these throughout Australia, everybody benefiting from our expertise and experience, why not? The more the better. And there's just some really important messages about upcycling and about the way you can work with your local industry to give young people the skills and insights that they really need.
Your student mentioned that she wanted to be a diesel mechanic. Yeah, correct? Well, I understand that diesel is a thing of the past. In 10 years' time, they won't be manufactured anymore, if my information is correct. So is she aware of that? Or?
Agreed. Look, I think what, if we know anything about innovation in Australia, is that we are late adopters or laggards compared to innovation nations. We like to call ourselves innovation nation, and there are fantastic innovators here, but I don't think our friends in Canberra are the best place to drive these initiatives forward, and they still haven't really got it together on climate change and emissions reductions targets. And we've still got, we've still got states coming up with road user charges based on kilometre usage for electric vehicles because they're not paying a fuel excise, which hasn't been contributed towards roads since 1956. So, you've got all these really odd things that are actually working against the market. And of course, the big manufacturers are saying, well, the Australian government just isn't incentivizing people to buy electric cars, so we will prioritise markets where they are. Norway already has 40% of their vehicles electrified. They've got a target to be 100% by sometime in the 2030s, and they're actively encouraging people to do that. And it's cheaper and better if you've got solar, and you can charge off your home battery and you can charge off your solar at work. So up at La Trobe University, our car parks are covered in solar, and the university is going to give us a DC fast charging car space, basically one for us and one for community. So if you come over to visit us, you'll be able to charge your electric car on the university campus as well. And La Trobe wants to replace their vehicle fleet predominantly with electric vehicles in the next few years. So they're all, moving towards that new energies focus. And I was at Colasol Estate, and it was really interesting because what they're increasingly doing is they're thinking about, now how you have battery to grid B2G systems. And so what a lot of people are doing is, instead of actually having solar at home, they're putting it on their on top of work. And you plug your car in and you charge up off the free solar during the day. Then you drive your car home and you plug it into a Tesla battery and charge that from your car. Generally, the car is a lot bigger than a sort of a Tesla wall system. So you've got plenty of juice left over, and you don't even need a solar panel system at home. You just use your car as a portable battery. And that's the exciting thing about, what's happening. It's a huge growth industry. It's all integrated. It's a system. And we've already seen companies like, I think it's AGL, you can lease a Tesla from them for $350 a week, which is pricey, but it includes insurance, tyres, maintenance, and they'll, even for $10 extra a week, they'll put in a charging system in your garage for you. And, they own the resource, but they see it as part of their network. It's a network asset. And these are the sort of creative, I think you're going to see a lot more electric companies investing in owning electric vehicles that they lease to customers as a service.
So I'm going to buy an electric car next year, Graeme. So I think it's very exciting. What's available on the market? What would you buy?
I'm waiting, and I don't have any certainty over when it will be available, but I want an ID for a Volkswagen. I'm really welded on to German manufacturers and reliability, and I've been a Volkswagen nut for a long time. So me personally, that's what I like. I like their build quality. I like their understated style. I like the fact that they don't ever really go out of date. That's what I'll be investing in. But if I can't get one of those, I get a Tesla Model 3.
Yep. Have you been following what Greg McCarve is doing with Ace Vehicle, who's sort of looking to be the Australian manufactured car?
No, I don't. Is he in Queensland? Is that the delivery van?
He's actually building his cars in. They're going to come out in October. So he's sort
Fantastic.
they're sort of coming on stream in October. In
Awesome.
Adelaide. He's got a facility in Adelaide.
Ace Cars. Well, I'll check those guys out. Yeah. Look, it's so fantastic to see that the resurgence in manufacturing is coming through innovation in this space and is a growth industry.
Oh, I just want to know if you have any trouble with the bureaucracy and your design standards and taxing and registrations and things like that.
Not yet, because it's not registered. We will we will have to pay the 2.5 cents per kilometre tax if that doesn't change by the time this car's on the road. We've got engineering certifications sorted out. Jaunt will, not only guide us and advise us on the standards that we require and the features, but they'll also tell us when they think we're ready to certify and coordinate all of that for us. So that's what we're doing in partnership with industry. We're using their R&D and their expertise. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're working smartly.
Appreciate your time, Graeme. It's been wonderful.
Oh, you're very welcome, Rob. And any of you, when we're not in lockdown and when you don't have COVID-19 rampant in your community, you're welcome to come and visit us. As part of the Digital Innovation Festival on the 4th of September, maybe we'll be open. We're not sure if we're out of lockdown. We've got an open workshop. So you're all welcome to go onto the Digital Innovation website, find us, book in and come along for a visit. Or Rob knows my contact details. You can organise a visit any Saturday that we're not in lockdown through me directly via my email.
Okay, thanks, Graeme. Appreciate that.
All right. I hope you enjoyed the talk, guys. Sorry about the challenges of technology. And if you go away and you've got questions, I'm happy to respond to them via Rob. Just direct them to me. And but most importantly, come and see us and get excited about the future of transportation because it's electric.
Okay, thanks, Graeme. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks very
Graeme.
much. Fantastic. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Wonderful.